This is the DTV Digest, the podcast that brings you news and reviews of films which didn't make it to the cinema. And now, here's your host, Mike Parkin.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the DTV Digest. I'm your host, Mike Parkin, and joining me this week are Richard Hawes.
Hello, everyone.
And Stephen Lockridge.
Hello.
This week, we've got four main reviews to discuss. We're going to kick off with Founders Day, followed by Hellhound and Witch. And then we have a almost feature-length short film called Hope and Glory, a Mad Max fan film. Our short shot is The Spider Within. It's another animated Miles Morales Spider-Man film. And then our DTV throwback is Time Lapse. So without further ado, let's crack on. Our first film then is Founders Day. A small town is shaken by a series of ominous killings in the days leading up to a heated mayoral election. This is from Eric and Carson Bloomquist, who also made She Came from the Woods, which was a favourite of ours from, was it last year, the year before?
Yeah, I think it was last year. Not too long ago, anyway. Not too long.
Now, Rich, obviously, last year we saw Thanksgiving, the Eli Roth film, which does share some similarities to this. In that we have, it's set on this tricentenary of this town being founded, hence Founders Day, etc. And there's also this very heated mayoral debate going on, and the film kind of focuses not only on that debate, but that election race, but on these two candidates' kids who are all sort of friends or rivals at high school, and it's not long before they're meeting some very sort of gruesome ends. This one of the things it does sort of share with Thanksgiving, the Eli Roth one, is that it can be pretty gruesome at times. It does sort of go into its kills with a bit of gusto, which is quite refreshing, shall we say. Steve, what did you make of Founders Day?
I really enjoyed this. I mean, to be fair, to me, it's more Scream than Thanksgiving. I'll be honest.
That is the archetype, of course, yeah.
Yeah, but there's certain things that I can't go into the spoilers, but made it more Scream-like for me, I'll be honest with you. But, yeah, decent fun, decent kills. I thought the script was really well done. Performances were great. It's just a little bit too on the nose. I can't go into spoilers or anything, but to me, it is literally Scream with a slightly different script. But I enjoyed it. It is what it is. It does sets out and does what it wants to do, I think. Some of it's a little bit over the top, like the blood spurts are a little bit cheesy. They made it a little bit cartoony for me. Where but like I say, it is pretty gruesome. It doesn't shy away from it, but some of it was just a little bit too over the top in a couple of scenes with the bloodshed. But apart from that, I really enjoyed it.
I mean, you mentioned Scream. I mean, the one part of this which really did make me think of that was when one of our protagonists is in school like the day after her girlfriend has been, disappeared, and so, this sort of cowled killer comes running up to her and stabs her, or fake stabs her, but it's just a joke, for God's sake, So, well, that's such that did remind me of Scream a lot, I must admit.
Yeah. But yeah, to me, there's a lot more, but I just can't not go into. you know,
Mhm.
for spoiler reasons. And I did like the twist at the end as well. I'll be honest.
Yeah,
It
I mean,
was,
it's quite different. Yeah,
yeah.
the way it plays out.
Mm.
Rich, what did you make of Founders Day, and how do you think it actually compares to She Came from the Woods?
Well, I think it's She Came from the Woods was something we were really looking forward to. It's based on a really good short film. You know, playing on very familiar sort of teen horror tropes and stuff. This film does much the same thing, but it does feel, because of the concept of it being a slasher movie and the Founders Day theme and stuff, it does feel a bit like it's riding the coattails of Thanksgiving, which just seems odd considering it's from the same team. It just feels like I suspect that this was maybe like a long-term project that just happened to be developed at the same time as Eli Roth's film.
Sure.
And because I find it very strange to think that they would pick something so close in subject matter and style to do as because it's just not going to stand out enough, and it kind of gets lost in the all these slasher movies and stuff. But putting that aside, I do think it's solid. I do think it's got its own voice. I think it's really trying to. It's quite a long film, about an hour and 40 minutes. Not too long. I mean, it's like you mentioned, like Scream and that, they all had running times of a similar amount of time. But it really packs in a lot of a large number of characters, a large number of subplots and themes, and it's mixing comedy with more serious scenes, and there's it's a very contemporary story. So, like as you've mentioned, there's uh, uh, an LGBTQ relationship in there, and so it's got its own features, but at the same time, it does feel a bit like Thanksgiving. One thing that is different to Thanksgiving is that this is a cast of basically unknowns. There's nobody, there's not even an person in the cast who's like really well known. There might be some people in there that you're familiar with from TV shows and stuff, but there's no like name above the title kind of people in there. But I thought they were all really good, and that as we found with a lot of the kind of movies that we cover, is when the casts are unknown, that can be quite beneficial because you're not bringing any baggage. You don't actually have any expectations of any of the characters. I thought that because of that approach, they were able to play with your expectations of who was basically the lead protagonist in this story. So there was a point where it was one character and she kind of disappeared, and then another character comes in and I'm like, right, well, she's definitely going to be the main one. And they kind of do the sort of psycho Scream thing of adjusting your expectations there. One of the main guys who turns up is the school teacher character. He's kind of hovering around the whole movie. He looks like he's someone that you feel like you should know from something. He's got a very sort of familiar presence. Again, as far as I know, he's not anyone I've seen him in anything. But he was good. He's got that authority kind of presence. You believe him as that kind of that character that everybody is trusting. The kids are listening to and stuff. And you've got the two lead politician characters who are, say, in this mayoral race, the current mayor and the guy who wants to be mayor. And there's a lot of twists and turns. I think the film kind of, it reaches a point where you think, oh, we're at the end, and then actually there's like another half an hour left after that. And you're kind of thinking, what are they going to do here? I don't know what they're going to do, but they do bring in some interesting ideas and stuff. And I think it's if you're a slasher movie fan, this definitely delivers on all those things that you want. And that's really hard when we've seen the slasher movie cycles of we're in we've had so many since the 80s and the 90s and post Scream and everything. And Thanksgiving was did a really good job of that, and this one does too. So I think this is a great companion piece to this sort of new temporary cycle. I can't see that we're going to get many more slasher movies at this time as a result of that. But I think these two are like quite interesting, modern, very up to date examples that really still throw back to everything that you that you were familiar with and you enjoyed from those films in the past.
Yeah, so this is one of those ones which hooks onto, we've had ones which celebrate a particular holiday or something like April Fools, or April Fools or prom night or something like that. So this is sort of more localized, in that respect, it kind of reminded me of Punch. In that it was a it was a local phenomenon sort of thing. That's what we got here. So that was really interesting. I think,
and I don't really know much about Founders Day. I mean, I've heard of it, but it's not like one of those holidays that.
Well, I think it
really
is just it is just for that particular town. It's like, this is the day that we celebrate the town being created, as it were. This is when we first settled here. That's kind of thing. But train of thought's gone. What was I going to say? Yeah, so I think it is more successful than Trick. Trick was another film which sort of was a bit similar to this, in the way it sort of set things up. But I think it over-egged itself, and this doesn't. This there is purpose to what we are seeing happening.
I also think Trick was funny because Trick had more of a pedigree. It was from an established director, Patrick Lussier, who'd already done, say, other slasher movies and stuff. In the script as well, by somebody who'd got quite a record. The cast was filled with some names, but the film itself felt quite low budget and lacking in start. So it wasn't really that memorable of a film. So although it was one that does come to mind, it wasn't really one that kind of made much of an impression. I think this is even though it doesn't have a Tom Atkins or something like that film had or whatever. I think this film just feels like a bit more novel and a bit more unique and even of a better standard of quality. Even though they say it was still both of them are low budget films.
I think so. I did like this a lot. It's got a dry sense of humor as well, with the police commissioner just being just totally laid back to everything that's happening. So that was quite good. And it's one of those films that invites you to try and guess who the killer is, and then does a good job of showing you that you're totally wrong who the killer is. I thought that worked really well.
Do you think the film is genuinely trying to make a political statement, or is it just having fun?
I think it's just having fun. Yeah, the guy who plays the challenger, he reminds me of the young guy in 30 Rock.
Yeah.
He looks very similar to him. It's quite amusing. Anyway, yeah, so I think we all enjoyed this, so let's make it official. Scores on the doors. Steve?
I'll give it an 8.
And Rich?
I'm going to give it a 7.
I'll join you on a 7. Yeah, thoroughly enjoyable, maybe a little bit long for its own good, but it keeps you guessing, and the kills are, nasty and well presented. So there you have it, 2 7s and an 8, very recommended from us. Go check it out. Our next film is Hellhound. While hunting down a brutal kingpin, one error sends an elite hitman on a downward spiral that devolves into all-out war on the streets of Thailand. I was pleasantly surprised to see that this starred Louis Mandylor. And I suddenly remembered I'd seen the trailer for this a while ago and totally forgot about it. So I had very little knowledge of what this was going to be going into it, and overall I was pleasantly surprised. This is a very nihilistic thriller, but it is very well made. Some really good action sequences in it. And yeah, just a really well shot thriller. What did you make of this one, Rich?
Yeah, it kind of exceeded my expectations, really. I was looking forward to it, but I have seen a couple of things that Lewis Mandylor has done lately that were, well, one thing in particular called Adrenaline, which is just like the cheapest thing. And, just like, I haven't even finished it yet, but it was just like not a very well made film. And I thought, well, this is, Lewis Mandylor, he's in Thailand. Some of the stuff you see that's made in Thailand ends up being, Shiro's being a good example of that. Just like really, just not very good at all. I think this has got its issues, but I was really impressed with the look of the film. I think the cinematography is really sharp, lots of nice cityscapes and dynamic camera work. The cinematographer is actually the writer of the film, Niccolo Della Fere, who was the cinematographer of the Stephen Rennie short film Redemption, which is really good, which I think we've covered in the past, and I do recommend people go and check that out. That also featured, I think, Ron Smorenberg, who is who's in this film in a supporting role. He's a martial artist and actor based in Thailand, so he turns up in a lot of this kind of stuff. The film is directed by Joshua Dixon, who's an American director, but again, he's based in Thailand, so he's done a lot of work also as a cinematographer. This is his feature directing debut. I think it reminded me of things like I haven't seen it, but the trailer for Jean-Claude Van Damme's film Full Love or Eagle Path or whatever it was called.
Oh yeah.
Not whatever it's called, but whatever it ultimately ends up being called if it ever gets released. But or even Skin Trade, stuff like that. I think it's got some really solid action. It's quite a sort of downbeat sort of like you said, it's quite a dark sort of thriller for the most part, with a fairly slow pace, I would say. It's and I do think it's a bit pretentious and indulgent at times. It's like really ponderous. It actually starts out with like a quotation and stuff, and every now and again the film really slows down to sort of linger on, oh, aren't we terrible, and the terrible things we do, and is sort of philosophizing sort of scenes. But it's a hitman in Thailand story. Basically, he's on a job. There's nothing personal. It's literally just a job, and it's one of those. It's his last job kind of things. He's trying to get out. The action sort of peaks quite early, I think, with like the typical sort of fight with the giant scene. Which I just thought was really, really well done. That's really fun. And you could tell that Lewis was doing, because Lewis is a martial artist himself. You could see that he was really doing a lot of that action himself. There was a bit where a guy gets, literally, he's thrown down some stairs and falls down the stairs and stuff, which was all really good. The film itself is quite indulgent and overlong to an extent. There's it's kind of a subplot basically involving a guy who's kind of on the periphery of the action, and they occasionally cut back to him, and there's scenes with him and his relationship to one of the other characters, and you feel like it, why is this here? It's like it doesn't feel like it's going anywhere. There is a payoff, so there is some, something comes out of it, but at the same time that payoff is also not even required. It's surplus. So that whole element, that whole subplot.
What about the sort of flashbacks as well?
Flashbacks.
We get a flashback with the main bad guy.
The guy with the tattoos all over his face. He's amazing.
It flashes back to when he was a kid.
Yeah.
It's like for no particular reason. So, well, why? Why do we need this?
There's a little bit of that because there's some flashbacks with Lewis Mandylor as well, and again I think they're trying to go for some sort of weightiness of a bit like when Jesse Johnson in the debt collector. He did all the stuff with the cows, and stuff like
yeah.
that. I think there's a little bit of that, and so they're going for sort of some pathos or whatever went by the conclusion of the film. But all the stuff with that guy who's like a secondary sort of support character, and those scenes, which are interesting scenes, and the payoff of that. But did you feel like me, like that payoff? You could it happens, and then basically it's as if it didn't happen, and it's just the film continues. Otherwise, you could have excised that whole bit, and it wouldn't have impacted anything. So that whole subplot really has no bearing on it, and it doesn't actually impact anything at all. To my mind, I mean, it's interesting, but it's just peripheral and a surplus.
Yeah, it's extra weight basically, isn't it?
Yeah, extraneous. So it's a bit of an odd sort of thing there. So I thought quite a novel feature, but didn't really work in the context. I think if you had a film that was more focused on that, yes, but not as a sort of supplementary kind of thing. But yeah, I thought the bad guy, this guy who's genuinely got all these tattoos on his face, local actor whose name I don't think I could pronounce, but yeah, he was really authentic. Reminded me a bit of there was a Jean-Claude Van Damme film with Latin American gangsters.
There's a couple of Latino actors who, they have a unique look, shall we say, and they've turned up in a few things. There's a guy who used to turn up in, I think it was the Lethal Weapon TV series, and he had that, all the tattoos up the neck and all that sort of stuff,
Might be Robert Lasardo, because Robert Lasado's
he's the older one. Yeah, Robert Lasardo is like the older version.
Oh, okay.
But this guy was a lot younger. So there are a couple of them, at least, sort of knocking around who've got that look. Who obviously, lived the life and all the rest of it, and decided to become actors, as you do.
This guy's called the villain is called Tar, and the guy is called Panya Yimam. Pie. And he's only had a couple of other credits. He was in A Prayer Before Dawn, which was the film from 2017 with it was quite a highly acclaimed sort of drama. I didn't actually see it yet myself, but it's about a guy who goes into a boxer in the Thai prison. Basically. It looks pretty interesting.
Yeah, I remember that one. Yeah.
But I haven't seen it. But that's one of his only credits. I don't know what this guy's background is, but he definitely looks like the real deal. What was it? We Die Young was the Jean-Claude Van Damme film I was trying to think of. That guy had tattoos, but I don't know if they were real. But yeah, really fearsome. You wouldn't mess with this guy kind of character. Mm-hmm. Louis Mandylor, really great really good in this role. Yeah,
he's very good in this. Yeah, but his character's a complete bastard. He's a complete psychopath, basically, as we find out at the end. I mean, that is one of the weird things about the film, is like kind of you're kind of on his journey. You're with this guy as he's the protagonist, but there's nothing to warm you to him, and he's not really on a quest for redemption or anything like that. Oh no,
it's just like you kind of get lost in the thing, and when the stuff happens at the end, you're kind of like, am I supposed to be happy that you've done it's like it doesn't sit well, it doesn't feel right, and I think that's the point.
I think it is. Yeah, I'd put this in the same ballpark as things like Zero Tolerance and Only God Forgives. It's
funny because I actually thought of Only God Forgives, although I've never seen it. But I did wonder if there were some similarities there.
There is a bit. There's a certain level of sort of nihilism.
Because that was set in Thailand as well.
It was, yeah.
Pound of Flesh, the Jean-Claude Van Damme film, came to mind, although I can't remember where that was filmed. But that seemed to have a similar feel, although this has a much better, much more polished look to it than
I was pleasantly surprised by this, I have to say. So, what are you going to score it, Rich?
I am going to give this another 7.
I'm going to join you on a 7. Yeah, thoroughly like this one. Bit dark, bit nasty at times, especially that ending. But there you go, 2 7s for Hellhound. Go check it out. Nearly called it Bloodhound. Go check it out. Our next film is Witch. In a small town in England in 1575, William embarks on a journey to prove the innocence of his wife Twilla, falsely accused of being a witch, and will be put to death if found guilty. William must hunt down the real witch to save Twilla from death. Okay, so production values for what is obviously a modest budgeted film are superb. So the setting, the costumes, all of that, the locations, they do such a good job of putting all that together. We've seen a lot of productions set in medieval times, and they are usually wanting, but this has got a decent sized cast of extras, and I think the whole thing looks pretty decent. My issue, guys, as if it needs saying.
I know what you're going to say. I know what you're going to say.
Yeah.
It's in media bloody res again. Oh, I was so on board with the beginning of it, and then it cuts to black, and it's like 4 days earlier. ... And I was like slapping my forehead, and my anger at it or frustration at it was borne out, unfortunately, because the end. I mean, sometimes you get a scene at the beginning, and it leads you to think one thing, but then it's sort of something else happens immediately after, and you think, oh, okay, But this doesn't. This plays out exactly as it shows you, more or less, with a bit more dialogue at the end. So that didn't help.
The thing that got me with it as well is it's not a short scene.
Yeah, I know.
And you just play it out and it's like a full. If you're playing both, it's like a full 10 minutes worth of the running time.
It's basically they went to the end of the film and just copied 10 minutes and replayed it at the beginning. It's without any sort of nuance added to it or anything. Very nice. Yeah. Anyway, overall I did like this, but I think it is one of those films which wants to tell you everything rather than show you everything. There's a lot of dialogue in this, and it's a lot going on in terms of exposition and everything. And there is a couple of decent twists along the way, and but overall, I think it could have done with a little less talking, or a lot less talking. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, I agree with you. To be fair, I mean, like you say, production looks fantastic. Even the CGI special effects look pretty decent as well. The set design's great, but it's just a little bit too twisty for me. You've got a certain character who isn't what he seems to be, or who is what he seems to be, if you know what I mean. And I just felt it just falling over its own feet in a way. And like you said, there's too much dialogue, too much exposition is in that dialogue. They could have. But to be honest, I don't know how they would have been able to do it any other way. I just think it just too overcomplicates itself a little bit.
Sure.
With too many twists and plots, and twists and turns and stuff like that. But at least, someone trying something a little bit different.
Yeah,
I'd rather see, rather than just the same thing over and over again, someone trying something different, maybe failing. At least someone's giving something else a go. And yeah, like I say, with the media res and that, if it was just a little bit, sometimes I don't mind it if it's just a little, couple of minutes as well. It's literally the full scene again, which baffled me. They really did baffle me, that. Yeah.
Rich, what are your thoughts about Witch?
I was quite. I like the fact that Sarah Alexandra Marks is in it. We've seen her go from being in, lots of short films, especially with working with a lot with Blake Ridder, who she also then starred in his feature debut Help, which we also covered. But she's been turning up, with increased frequency in feature films, which I quite like. And the standard also of the film, as you've said, is good. I mean, you compare it to some of the other films that we see, especially in the sort of low budget British kind of field. This is aesthetically, I think, a cut above. I'd love to know where it was shot. I mean, the locations look very authentic, and really, like you say, there's loads of extras and stuff. So it really feels like a lived-in, place that they've managed to film it, and the way they bring it to life. I quite like. I wasn't wholly engaged with the story, and it's not really this kind of period sort of witchcraft kind of story is not really my bag. So I think there's something that happens right at the end. I think it might even be a mid-credits scene, if I recall correctly. But there was something there that sort of anchored me a bit, not anchored me, but brought me in a bit more. And I thought there's more of a story there that I'm interested in than what I've just been watching. But yeah, I share your same, the same reservations you guys have about the use of the in media res, and basically replaying an entire scene when things are kind of heating up, and you're kind of like, well, you get this long sense of deja vu until the sort of the denouement. But so I think it's got its strengths. It's a debut, so don't expect to be perfect for a feature film debut from Craig Hind and Mark Zammit, who previously made some. Actually, I think Mark Zammit's actually made more films, but I think Craig Hind it's his first feature for sure. Yep. Mark Zammit's done. No, I think it might be his first feature as well.
It's his first feature.
So yeah, I think they've done. I think they've done really well with it. I think it shows a lot of promise, as with say some of the other sort of debut films that we've covered. It's a bit rough. It's got some issues and that, but there's a lot of strengths there, and I think we're definitely seeing them sort of learn from those experiences and deliver us. I think I can see them delivering a sort of a tighter a horror story, whether that's another period one or something completely different. I'd be definitely really interested, but I know I think these two guys and the team that they assemble are a good sort of, can be trusted to sort of deliver us another really good film, and I think this shows a lot of promise.
Yep, I agree. Both of these guys worked with Tom Payton as well.
Right, yeah, on the Black Site.
On Black Site and Pandorica as well.
Mm-hmm.
Which is interesting. Yeah. Okay. Scores, Steve.
I'll give it a 6.
And Rich.
I'm gonna go a 5.
I'm gonna join. I'm gonna join Steve on a 6 for this one. So 2 6s and a 5 for Witch. Go check it out. Our next film is Hope and Glory, a Mad Max fan film. In this one, Max returns to help a settlement in exchange for gasoline, taking on a dangerous rescue mission. When I started watching this and I realized that Hope and Glory were the names of 2 of the characters, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, please don't let one of them be a kid. Please don't let one of them be a kid. Please don't let one of them be. Oh, it's a fucking kid. Anyway, putting that aside, I thoroughly enjoyed this. I think they've done a great job, Adrian Martin and Eric Van Schuur. I mean, it's a monumental thing taking on something the size of Mad Max. It's one thing to do Star Wars. There's loads and loads of Star Wars fan films out there, and there's plenty of resources to help you with sound effects and things like that. You know, but Mad Max is a total different kettle of fish. And I think, for the most part, they've done a really good job of setting the scene, setting the mood, mimicking George Miller's style to a certain bit. That, you know, the way they focus on the character's eyes, the way that's slit for one. You know, there's certain editing choices that come up where they, you know, trying to mimic that style. I think all of that works. The action, for the most part, is really good stuff. You know, it'd be interesting to know what sort of budget they had to do this, but they pack a lot in. And yeah, I did really like this. So yeah, let's go to Steve first. What do you make of Hope and Glory?
Right. Okay. I'm gonna be truthful here and say that I am probably one of the only people in the world that wasn't that mad on Fury Road. Yeah, I've watched it and I just didn't get it. It was all right, not special. Now, specifically, this is great. I think the way they've done it, the sets, the CGI, the cars, everything in that way is great. But the story just didn't grip me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, same with Fury Road. It just seemed, we'll drive all the way out here and we'll drive all the way back, and that was about it. And to me, it did nothing for me whatsoever. This is kind of the same. Now, the only bit it kind of grabbed my attention really was the last 5 minutes, 5-10 minutes, where it reminded me of the first one, shall we say?
Mm-hmm.
With what
Yep.
happens. Yeah.
Yep.
Apart from that build up to it, just didn't do anything for me. I don't know why. This kind of thing doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, like I say, it looks great. And I'm really impressed with what they've done and how they've done it and how it looks, and it's fantastic. And the other thing as well is a little couple of like comedy bits that I don't think worked as well. Like the bit with the map, you know, where he talks to the guy with the map.
Mm-hmm.
And then he takes the map. He's like, "Well, I want my fucking map back." And he just, you know, that bit kind of brought me out of it as well. Don't really know what they were going for there, but it looks great. The story didn't grab me.
Mm-hmm. I must admit, I was all set to pick this thing apart. And you know, sort of setting it in the Fury Road universe, shall we say? I mean, you know, the thing is, you know, George Miller has been very fast and loose with, like, you know, continuity and the timeline and stuff. I mean, look at Furiosa, for fuck's sake, all over the place as far as, you know, to try to fit it in to any sort of timeline. It's just like, it's just a story at the end of the day. So, you know, name dropping Immortan Joe and having the, you know, the guys all painted white and stuff. I thought, you know, you're making a rod for your own back a little bit. If you get this wrong, it's going to look really bad, you know. But I think for the most part, they did pull it off, you know. So there's elements of Mad Max 2 and Mad Max 1 in there as well, as you said. So yeah, my only issue really was the age of Max. You know, I wish they'd had an. I mean, he's fine. You know, as he's on screen, he's fine. But I just wish they'd found an actor who's 20 years older.
It
would have fit more. But anyway, now, Rich, I know you've been looking forward to this one being released on YouTube. How did it stand up for you?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty. I echo your sentiments. I think the the film looks probably. I was really surprised when because I thought it was just going to be like a 5-10 minute kind of thing. When it actually premiered and it was 42 minutes, I was like, well, we're not going to have this as the short, but we still definitely got to cover it. I thought it was. Yeah, I think it does. Earn its running time. It's definitely got enough storyline and story and action and stuff going on. It doesn't feel really padded. If anything, it's a more succinct feature, which is what they were going for, I guess. And the length is dictated to a certain degree by budget. But I think if you compared this to it's basically the length of an episode of a TV show or a TV show that used to be played on, with advertising breaks and stuff. But yeah, about 40 minutes is kind of a standard running time. So I think that works quite well. I echo what you were saying about the casting of Max. I think for me, he just doesn't look. I mean, he's got a bit of a Clive Owen kind of look to him, and it's just not.
That's right.
He doesn't really seem to fit either Mel Gibson or Tom Hardy, and like you say, this is kind of leaning into the Fury Road iteration or offshoot or whatever, or reboot, whatever. I have never seen Fury Road, so I don't know how it fits in canon and stuff. But I think the last Mad Max film I saw was Thunderdome, like when it came out. So I don't think I've watched anything else. But and I was only a small child, so I didn't really register much then. So I'm not a Mad Max fan, so I can't speak to that side of things. But I know a little bit about it. But I thought instantly that as soon as you look at it, you think Fury Road. It just from the marketing and stuff that I was familiar with. I mean, from Furiosa, it's very in the it's in the public eye at the moment. That particular sort of aesthetic. You just know what they're going for. And actually, after I'd watched the film, I noticed on the credits that they said that the story was adapted. So then I did some digging, and this is based on a story from the Fury Road prequel comic books, which came out around the time of Fury Road. And so what they've done is taken the Hope and Glory story, and they've run with that. So because when I was watching it, I was thinking, it's the old action hero child kind of thing again, that we see so much of. There's strong, say, Western, so allusions. So he's riding through the West, or instead of on a horse, he's in the car. And again, I think that's probably all in the original movies. I'd be surprised if it wasn't, but it definitely has that kind of Western kind of feel to it. He's basically the man with no name, until at one point he does actually mention his name. But he's a mysterious stranger, and he ends up in this community and stuff. And then it works with its limited resources. I mean, there's the car is great. It's like they've this really car looks fantastic. It's not supposed to look super wonderful or anything. It's a beaten up, battered old car, but it looks really good for the movie. The stunts and the action stuff that's in there. There are some car stunts a little bit, and we get a person set on fire, which is pretty cool. That wouldn't have been easy to do on a budget. What else have we got? The fact that it's a German production, but then they've tried to, they've made it in English. So I'm not sure to the degree of how much of it is dubbed, but that was one of the things I was watching when I was a little bit distracted, thinking, I think, a few of the characters here are dubbed. The fact, realizing that it was German makes a lot of sense. So I think they've made something that sort of does sort of, it mostly feels pretty authentically an American production, even though it's from Europe. What else say, the Western kind of thing. Yeah, I think it does fit with back in the 80s Mad Max, 70s, 80s Mad Max, and say the Road Warrior, really, when they pushed it into the kind of post-apocalyptic kind of setting, was rip-offs left, right, and centre. Roger Corman was making tons of them, and I think this kind of evokes those films as much as it evokes Mad Max. It evokes it's kind of sitting somewhere between the two, which I kind of like. It's kind of say in the tradition of the Mad Max knockoffs as much as it is in the tradition of Mad Max. And even the Asylum recently has been doing its own mockbusters for the Fury Road and Furiosa films. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think I'd say I'm coming at it not as a franchise fan, but as somebody who's interested in fan films and interested in well-made fan films. And I think this is definitely one that is worth checking out. It's not a high watermark one, but it's definitely of a very, very good standard. And I think people will really enjoy it.
You do continually surprise me, Rich, with sort of the gaps in your sort of film knowledge.
Oh, I got so many gaps.
Considering how much knowledge, the depth of your knowledge in the most obscure, 80s B movies and everything, but something which is, I don't know.
Remember, I've still not seen The Warriors. Remember, there's loads of them. There's loads I've never seen.
Jeez.
I'm watching all these B movies and stuff. I haven't even got time.
Well,
to
exactly.
watch all
That's what I mean. Anyway.
I do try to fill some gaps every now and again, but yeah, I do need to go back and watch. I do need to see Fury Road, and I do need to go back and watch the original ones.
I'm planning to get my son Josh to watch 2, 3, and 4 before Furiosa comes out.
Going back to the thing I was saying about this being German and it's dubbed into,
I was surprised,
dubbed into English and stuff. Yeah. Well, the original Mad Max was dubbed, wasn't it? Because they made it in Australia and then they dubbed over to give it, to get rid of the Australian accents and stuff.
Yeah.
So there's kind of a link there as well, which I quite like when you think about it. Say because the series has had this sort of, it had this kind of Hollywood makeover. I'm right that the first one was like just in a regular world, and then in the second one, the world's gone to hell.
Well, yeah, the first one was
dramatic.
The prologue that we get on this with the voiceover, what was happening in the first one isn't a million miles away from that. Really, that was the backdrop. It was things are getting worse and worse. The petrol's getting more and more scarce. But yeah, anyway.
Oh, so in the first one, it's kind of on the cusp.
It's on the cusp, and then the second one is set after like nuclear devastation and everything.
Right. Okay. Right. Oh, interesting. Yeah, I do need to go back and check those out. What are you gonna score it anyway?
Well, we don't. We do score these ones. I'm about to say.
We're going to score this one. We're going to score this one.
I was about to do my whole spiel about how we don't score the shorts. I'm going to give this one an 8. So, Steve.
I'll give it a 6.
Mm-hmm. And Rich.
And I'm going to go in the middle with a very solid 7.
There you go. A 6, a 7, and an 8 for Hope and Glory, a Mad Max fan film. Go check it out. We will put a link in the footnotes. Our short shot this week is The Spider Within. This is a Spider-Verse story with Miles Morales. In this one, Miles Morales struggles to balance his responsibilities as a teenager, friend, and student while acting as Brooklyn's friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. After a particularly challenging day living up to these pressures, Miles experiences a panic attack which forces him to confront the manifestations of his anxiety and learn that reaching out for help can be just as brave an act as protecting the city from evil. Now, interesting. I wish I'd read that before I watched the film, because as much as I admire the work that went into this, I couldn't help but think this is just retreading old ground. This is just retreading what we've already seen in the 2 Spider-Verse films so far. It's not really giving us anything new. I'd failed to spot the emphasis on that sort of father-son reaching out bit that occurs. it looks great. It does follow the style of the of the features. I think in a couple of times it kind of misses the point of these split screens and you know, so comic panels and things. But overall, yeah, it looks great. Steve, what do you make of this one?
Yeah, it's the saying in it, with great power comes great responsibility, and it's like a not a physical manifestation of that, but you know, like a mental block or a mental manifestation of it, really, in his head. You know, he has his panic attack. And to be honest, I actually thought the animation is not quite as nuanced as the films. There's not as much going on, but it was actually quite scary, I thought. You know, if you're the little kid watching that, you might be a little bit freaked out by it. As a couple of points. But yeah, it's very short. I mean, I think it's 7 minutes, is it? If that.
Yeah.
And it's just like one little scene, but the animation's great, the voice acting is great, like it always has been in the films. And I remember was it a couple of weeks ago it came out, Rich?
Yeah, it's not been out very long. Probably about 4 to 6 weeks.
But it just seems a bit weird why they've released it now. I don't know.
I believe it was originally that the third Spider-Verse movie was supposed to be, you know, maybe like there was supposed to be like a trailer for it being released, in, you know, because it was due, but then it's got delayed. So this is kind of a, I think has been released as something to like satisfy the fans until they're actually able to get the third part of the. Actually, I think no. I don't know how far, but originally there wasn't going to be a big gap between the second and third films.
Yeah,
and they've ended it on a cliffhanger and stuff, I think.
Yes.
I haven't seen those films, so again, I can't put it in the context.
Oh my God, Rich!
But I don't really like the animation style. I mean, I say taking this as sort of an example of that. It's like the kind of look of it just doesn't appeal. Same with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles film that was done recently. They're kind of that it just doesn't really attract me very much.
I honestly think you should give them a go, because they are.
I think so, because within 5 minutes of you watching them, you'd have forgotten about the style.
Yeah. I should give them a go.
They are fantastic.
So yeah, I echo what you were saying, that this, you know, goes quite dark, and you know, it does feel, it sort of leans more into a sort of a horror sort of thing, which I guess, you know, Sam Raimi did that with his Spider-Man movies. There were certain sequences which felt, you know, that they were leaning into his horror roots. This is not associated to, you know, Sam Raimi didn't make this or anything, but this is directed by Jarell Dampierre, who I think is isn't one of the people who made the Spider-Verse films. Is a different pair of hands, who's got a long history as a storyboard artist, actually. So this was like the first thing they've directed. I think the sort of the short story that it's telling about, you know, pressures and, you know, mental health. I think, you know, it's a film with a short message for its audience and for, you know, people in general. I think it's a good one. It's a noble one, and I think it's, you know, something that's. I was really surprised actually that the film actually doesn't end with a have you been affected by any of these issues? You know, contact X kind of message. That although I think the pages, because it's been released on multiple Sony YouTube channels, including the animation channel, the regular pictures channel, and also their Voyage fantasy channel, I think as well. There are certain fundraising bits and there's some information on those pages, but the film itself actually doesn't direct people to do it. But but as I say, aside from that, I think the message of the film is very clear, very, you know, dynamically told. Yeah, so my introduction to, say, I'm not really a fan of the animation, but my introduction to Miles Morales, I thought this was pretty good. And if people haven't seen this, like me, those who haven't seen the Spider-Verse films, I don't think you have to have seen the Spider-Verse films. I think that this is, it's a well-told story that sort of, quickly conveys what it's trying to get at, the pressures that he's under, and say using this sort of split panels and stuff to show how things are adding up. He's got this thing that happened and that thing and then another thing, and it's just like all getting on top of him. Yeah, I thought it was good.
Cool. We don't score the shorts, but we do recommend you check them out, and you will find a link to this in the footnotes below. Go check it out. Our DTV throwback this week is Time Lapse. 3 friends discover a mysterious machine that takes pictures 24 hours into the future and conspire to use it for personal gain until disturbing and dangerous images begin to develop. I've been pushing for us to see this for a while, and we did have to sort of track it down on one of the sort of free-to-stream services eventually. I really like this film. It reminds me a bit of like a sci-fi version of Shallow Grave, Danny Boyle's first film.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely.
It is, it's a single location film, more or less, about these 3 friends, one of whom is the custodian for a apartment building or apartment complex. And when one of the tenants is late, sort of with their rent, and they notice a pile of newspapers and things starting to stack up, they break in, or they go in to see if he's okay, find his dead body, but also find this strange machine which is aimed at their living room window, basically, and it's been taking photos on a daily basis. I think it does a really good job of sort of setting, itself up, and then introducing the threat and how that develops and how things start to spiral out of control for everyone. I really like this one. So, Steve, what did you make of Time Lapse?
I wasn't as enamored as you are, I'll be honest. I think it's a good premise, but I just think it's too enclosed, if you know what I mean. It doesn't leave the apartment, really. I think it could have done with a bit more space, and it's too long as well. But the bit with the bucket, I know that was like the threat that was needed to get him going and stuff, but I just thought it just dragged it out just a little bit too much. Because thing I do like Danielle, I never pronounce it, Panabaker, is it?
Yeah. She's turned up in a few things, isn't she?
Well, she's in The Flash, you know. I used to watch The Flash all the time when she was in that, and I think she's great. The is it Josh? No, I can't remember his bloody name.
So we've got Finn and Jasper.
Jasper, that's the one. His character just seems a little bit of a dick, to be fair. Well, to be fair, both of them are a bit of a dick. I mean, to be honest with you, but he's a big dick, shall I say. And I don't know, I don't think it goes where it could have gone. You know what I mean? It just seems to... Do you remember that one we watched a while ago where they found a mirror upstairs? And they went through and
I thought that one.
Yeah. I can't remember the name of it for the life of it, but it kind of reminded me of that in a way. But that seemed more expansive, more, just more going on. They just seem to sit in the flat and don't do anything except wait until it's time to take the next photo. I don't know. I think the concept was there, but I just think they could have done more with it.
Okay. And Rich, what did you make of this one?
I thought it was quite. I quite like. I do think it was slightly too long. It does feel like it's. When I was watching it, I was thinking it feels like an extended episode of like The Outer Limits or The Twilight Zone. And then later on, looking up, it's like, well, the story actually is a bit like, not saying necessarily ripped off, but perhaps inspired by a Twilight Zone episode, which was also about a camera. So there is I think that's in its DNA of that kind of thing. It's also that monkey's paw kind of thing that we talked about a monkey's paw short film recently on
That's right.
on the Short Shots show. And it's like this morality tale of, it's the twist on the finding a bag of money kind of theme.
Yeah.
Or the goose that laid the golden egg, whichever, it's all that kind of thing. So here they got the machine, which is their tool to be sort of the goose that's going to sort of give them their fortune. All the characters are introduced as flawed and unlikable, basically. So you kind of don't really like any of them. You kind of get on board with them to a degree, but the film is kind of quite intentional of like doing little subtle things to make you sort of step back from the characters a bit. So like Callie, Danielle Panabaker's character, she just says something that's offhanded and a bit derogatory, and which kind of makes you think, she's not that nice. And then Matt Finn, he's quite self-indulgent and only interested in he's probably self-indulgent and sort of driven by his desire to be an artist, and Jasper is just like really just greedy and just not a very nice guy, and just really out for himself all the time. And they're like casual drug users. They just kind of throw this in there that they're casual drug users, which I thought was very odd. But I think again, it's a thing that they kind of put in there to put you off just ever so slightly, just to think, I'm not sure about these I'm not sure about these people, how much I would get on board or trust them or be on the side. So anyway, so there's not really any good guys in this story essentially, but they have to kind of offset them with the bookie and all that sort of stuff.
I suppose it's sort of like a lot of films like this, you're kind of wondering how they're going to survive or how they're going to get away with it, kind of thing. But this one is like you're just kind of hoping somebody's going to screw up or something.
Yeah, you just know it's not going to work out well, and it's all like, how bad are things going to spiral? And there's the interesting thing here is the machine itself has no backstory or explanation. It's just kind of there. I think they went
the MacGuffin in it.
Yeah, I think they did that intentionally. I mean, John Rhys Davies is the inventor, and you see him in a photograph, but he never appears in the movie. And that's because they actually had some scenes with him that they actually cut out. So I presume that there was some sort of some scenes that put the scientist and all that the whole thing in more context, and they thought, actually, let's not do that. Let's keep it mysterious and distanced. Which I think works quite well, because apart from that, it's kind of got this kind of Primer-ish kind of element to it, although Primer sort of was a much more cerebral film, but that was the people who made it. But it's the same kind of, there's this magic box basically, and the sort of variation on time travel themes and stuff that they do it. Now what happens here is that they see stuff in the pictures and then they go, oh, we've got to do that thing so that it happens. And I think there's a fundamental misunderstanding in there, not from the filmmakers, but from the characters. They've kind of looked at it completely the wrong way. They don't realize that that's going to happen anyway. It's not like they have to, oh, we've got to get into that position or whatever. They start looking at it as a as like
chicken and egg, basically, isn't it?
They get it all mixed up, and then it perpetuates itself, because once they're in that cycle, then the camera's taking the picture of the next thing, which is the situation that they themselves have basically engineered. So there's some interesting elements there, and I do like the way it plays out. The shallow grave thing. That's funny you mentioned that, because that was completely what came to mind when I was watching it. Although it's a very different take, there was also that low budget British science fiction film that we saw, I think, like two or 3 years ago, where there was a missing person.
Yep.
There was a guy looking for his.
We've mentioned it.
Repeat.
Yeah, we've mentioned it a couple of times. That it's kind of a high watermark for this kind of sort of low budget sort of sci-fi fantasy sort of story. And so I think, although it drags on a bit too long, if you like sort of mystery sci-fi movies that are not really about the sci-fi, it's more about the characters, I think you would enjoy it. It'd be worth trying to track it down. It's from 2014. So there's a few films out there called Time Lapse. This one's directed by Bradley King, and so I think it's available to rent on certain platforms and on some streaming free streaming services as well.
Indeed. Yeah. So we don't score the throwbacks, but we do recommend you check them out. I found this one a very interesting one, I must admit, and I'm glad I made you to watch it. So there. That's the end of this week's show. So thanks for listening. Thanks to Rich and Steve. We had a decent selection of films this week. Thoroughly enjoyed most of them. Don't forget to check us out on Twitter and Facebook at the DTV Digest. Also check out the Short Shots. We posted a new episode quite recently. We've got another one in the works. Other than that, thank you for listening. Tune in next time.
Thank you for listening to the DTV Digest. Let us know your thoughts in the comments and tune in again next time.